My name is Emily Robert Rodriguez. I'm an assistant curator at the Academy Museum, and I'm an assistant curator on the Jaws exhibition.
Yes. Okay. So first off, I want to say what motivated the curation of the Jaws exhibit and what is like your connection to Jaws?
So, this is the largest exhibition the museum has done so far on a single movie. And that is really exciting. And I think there's only a few movies that could sustain that type of analysis, and Jaws is certainly one of them. The space that we're using is about 11,000 square feet. And if you've been to the museum before, it's where the Miyazaki exhibition was, Regeneration Black Cinema, the Color and Motion exhibition that's up currently, John Waters. So this is a space that typically is used for a very large scale kind of thematic exhibition or looking at someone's entire career. So when we were looking at what kind of milestone, we like to look at milestones, anniversaries, things that are coming up. I think someone looked at the calendar and said Jaws is 50 in 2025, and so I think that was probably enough to get everyone excited and wanting to move forward. And of course, there's a lot of other. We happen to be in good company with many other 50th celebrations that will be happening. Um, my Jaws kind of story, and I think it's funny because everyone we talk to, every filmmaker, everyone who worked loves Jaws. They all kind of have the same story, which is that they saw it when they were like 8 to 12, and it really imprinted in their brain. I think the first Jaws movie I ever saw was Jaws 3D, which is was directed by Joe Alves, who was the production designer on the first Jaws. And it is a really fun. It's set at like a SeaWorld type theme park, and I'm from San Diego, so we would like go to SeaWorld a lot. I really like loved going there. But in Jaws 3D, there's a scene where they're in like an underwater restaurant, and like a severed head or something comes up into the right up to the glass. And so that was my Jaws kind of, and I think I saw it as a sleepover. So that was kind of my imprinting moment. It kind of feels like I've always already seen it. It kind of just kind of seep. It feels like it's so saturated in the culture that I don't even remember the first time I saw Jaws, but it just kind of feels like it's been part of my life forever.
For the longest time, I never got to see Jaws because I was told you'll never want to go in the water again, and then
Exactly.
that put it off for the longest time.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is amazing. So, and then next, what was it like for you and your team to collect items and curate this exhibit that you've just described?
It's been really interesting experience because obviously the movie is 50 years old. It was shot on location in Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts, and it was a studio film, but at the same time it feels like this kind of ragtag team that was assembled. Steven Spielberg was 27 when he was making this movie, so it was this crew of kind of very young people, kind of out off on their own, which is to say that a lot of the props and things, costumes were just kind of gathered. They weren't always in like a studio film that's shot a soundstage in Los Angeles. They tend to they would have maybe a little bit more control over like, oh, we're going to save this special prop, we're going to save this thing, we're going to use this costume again. We built this set, but because it was on location, a lot of the kind of tangible history of the movie since 1975 has kind of scattered somewhat. So a lot of the objects that do still exist ended up with like a collector, ended up somebody from the crew took them home. So it has been a really intense kind of research experience of just trying to track down where everything could be if it even still exists. And a lot of the stuff honestly doesn't still exist because uh, a barrel or something they just kind of bought from a hardware store and it looks identical to every other barrel that is on Martha's Vineyard. So somebody might have it, but they don't know that they have it. But and that's kind of been the special thing of talking to these to people. We've also talked to a lot of people's families. Unfortunately, many of the group people have passed away since then. But we've talked to people who were like, "Oh, my dad worked on it. I just found this like box of slides or some photos or something." So we've also been working to find a lot of new things that people haven't seen in the last 50 years. So that will also be exciting that there will be some new things that people will be able to see.
Amazing. Like some never before seen behind the scenes photos in those slides.
Yes,
Wow.
yes, yeah.
What do you think made it so important and impactful in Hollywood once it came out?
Yeah, so Jaws comes out at a really interesting time in the industry. So this is the baby boomer generation, kind of are like teens or young adults at this time. Um, they grew up watching television more than movies, going to movie theaters as their parents' generation would have done. So they don't really have as much of the habit of movie going as their parents did. So as they're growing up, they're not going to theaters as much as previous generations. So the movie theaters are it's kind of similar to today, honestly, of like kind of the streaming divide. Um, uh, so the studios are kind of having to reinvent what they're doing. So part of what happens is all of these young filmmakers who went to like film school, like a Coppola, Lucas, Spielberg, um, they start becoming like the younger voice and really appealing to this kind of youth culture. And they're giving them things that they wouldn't see on TV. So it's like more violent or kind of just something different that you're not going to see sitting in the living room with your parents. So Jaws is totally within that, so Jaws becomes this kind of experience that it's not something you're going to see on TV. It's big. It looks different. It's shot on location, so it doesn't have that kind of maybe cheesy look that filming in like a pool would. So it's really appealing to people this time, and it becomes this phenomenon really of it makes a ton of money in its first opening weekend. People are waiting around the block. It's the first summer blockbuster essentially. The release of Jaws, it came out much wider than typically movies did at that time as well. They could released in like over 400 theaters at once, which at that time was kind of what you would do. Like today, if you ever hear about uh, it move, studios won't allow something to be reviewed until like the day that it comes out, which like when you hear that you're like, oh, it must not be very good because they don't want reviews to come out before. But similarly, what studios would do is they didn't think the movie was going to be very good, they'd release it all at once instead of only like allowing word of mouth to spread. If maybe they didn't think it was going to be very good, but instead what Jaws did is it released all at once, or in like over 400 theaters, and that actually built up the word of mouth because it was so good, and then it kind of expanded from there.
How do you think the film played into like the catalog of the Academy members?
Jaws won 3 Oscars. So it won for Best Sound, it won for Best Score, which was John Williams, and it won for Best Editing, who was Bernard Fields, who edited the film. It was nominated for Best Picture, but it didn't win. And Steven Spielberg was not nominated for Best Director. So that I think was, I mean, maybe yeah, so I think that kind of shows you maybe this kind of divide of how it's perceived, and I think this kind of the divide between the commercial and the kind of how good of a movie it is also. So the Academy is rewarding it for its kind of technical achievements, and yet doesn't reward Steven Spielberg even with a nomination for the film. So I think, I mean, I have not met Steven yet, but kind of in reading through his archive and what he saved, I think it was this was a very long shoot. It was supposed to be like 50 days. It ended up being like 150 days. So it was this very, I think, kind of I don't want to say traumatized, but it was like a very intense process, I think. And so kind of this roller coaster of difficulties on set, and then this like fantastic return. Everybody loves the movie, and yet you don't get nominated for Best Director. So I think I'm sure it kind of has this roller coaster of ups and downs for him. For John Williams, he should be so proud of what he did, and I think the score, uh, one of the most iconic scores of all time. That you hear it as a riff everywhere. Like you can kind of you see all like whenever I see like a movie or something, and you want to someone sees a fin or something, you hear the music. Even in your head, you might hear the music. And it was such a simple, it's just like, I think it's E, F, E, F, E, F is the like da, 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 da. It's so simple. There's a recent documentary where he and Steven were talking about it. And essentially Steven thought he was joking when he's like, it's just going to be these two notes basically back over and over. And Stephen was like, "Oh, that's very funny. Like, but what's the real score?" And John Williams was like, "No, this is it." And he was totally right. Like, it's so simple, it's so effective. It really is just kind of like your heartbeat, or like it's this very kind of primal thing that really has wormed itself into our pop culture consciousness. Yeah, it's so effective, and it also ended up helping a lot of. Obviously, there were some troubles with the kind of the mechanization of the shark consistently working on set. Um, so in those moments when you maybe only see the fin or you only see from the perspective of the shark, when you hear that music, you know it's the shark, and so it just kind of helped. Um, at, as a movie, as this kind of films are this collaborative art, it helps with like the score, all of the pieces kind of coming together to making this really effective final product. And Richard Dreyfuss, I mean, he wasn't nominated. I think his career went on. Obviously, this was like kind of a turning point for him. I think he was in American Graffiti as like a teenage, like he was supposed to be a teenager. Um, but this I think was a much more like mature role. He has his beard. He's like a different type of role for him. I know he still does like convention appearances, and I think he's the last remaining living of the trio. Roy Scheider and Robert Shaw had both passed away already, but I know like Richard Dreyfuss, he still does appearances at like like Jaws conventions and that kind of thing. So I think I'm sure he's proud of what he did on this as well.
And you talked about like the item, like what you've been like curating already, but out of like everything you've found so far, what do you think is the most prized like item you like have like curated to put in the exhibit so far?
So I will say we were able to visit Joe Alves' home archive, and he's the production designer. And production designer is like isn't even descriptive enough for what he did on he was the location scout. He like did kind of everything on the early stages of the movie. And he has all of these, he did a lot of storyboards early on, like kind of proof of concept. And so we have a few of those including one that's like the Jaws, like kind of open mouth, that they made the crew t-shirts from. And so that's just, it's so cool to see. Like we saw it in person. It's on this like the thinnest like tracing paper imaginable, but it's been here for 50 years. And so it was really cool to see those like before Jaws was even a thing, like it hadn't been invented, like it was kind of just an inkling in somebody's head at that stage, that this piece of paper was like predated even the movie. Is super cool. And I love seeing all the like kind of pieces as they come together to make a movie. Because sometimes Jaws, especially, I think is a movie that is so easy to watch that you can kind of forget how hard it is to make a movie. So kind of seeing all these pieces, I think helps remind you of all of the steps needed to take to get to that point.
Could you tell us when we should be expecting to see the exhibit? And sorry, what will we be expecting on the opening day of the exhibit?
Yes, so it opens September 14th, 2025, and it will be open until July 26th, 2026. So you have about a year to come out and visit it. Of course, this is 2025 is Jaws' 50th anniversary of its release, so we're getting in on the party of celebrating 50 years of Jaws. So the exhibition will be essentially scene by scene, taking people through the kind of experience of the movie. So you'll be beginning at opening credits, you'll walk through to the end credits, essentially, walking step by step kind of through the movie. There will be tons of original objects, uh, props, costumes, as well as like merchandise from the movie or after its release. Which, as you kind of mentioned, this like the marketing push at its release was also really unique, and continues to this day. We have stuff from just the past couple of years because there's still new merchandise coming out for Jaws. And we were really lucky. We worked with directly with Steven Spielberg's archive at Amblin, with Universal Archives, with Joe Alves. And so being able to work directly with these people, I think we've got some really unique things, unique and special things for people to see. And we have also Bruce the shark that was cast from the original mold. Currently, we've had it up since our opening. It's the last remaining original shark from that mold. It was created for the theme park, actually. But so he's been up in our. It's hanging on the same floor that Jaws the exhibition will be on. So we actually do have we've had like Bruce plushies and Bruce kind of things already that I think are already popular. So we'll be able to expand that. It's such a unique movie in that this is my opinion, but I think it's perfect. I think it's a perfect movie. It's so effective in its technical prowess, like the cinematography, the sound, all of these elements combine to make like a perfectly made film. But it's also so effective in its characters, and it's like whenever I'm in like a group of three, I'm like, am I the Hooper here, or am I like who am I in this trio? But like those characters are so rich and real. Um, and then like also obviously the kind of cultural phenomenon that it becomes, the commercial success of it, uh, not only I think indicates how fun and easy to watch it is and how popular it was, and how much like when you see it you want to talk about it or you want to experience it with other people. um, so that I think that's another way that's a perfect film, and that it kind of it something about it makes you want to be in like a community kind of watching it together, which I think is what movies are all about. And then kind of its broader implications on the industry. Obviously, being able to make a really good film that's also really commercially successful is kind of the pattern that after Jaws, all of the studios want that to happen every time they release a movie. So, really, I think the industry that we see today is very much based kind of based on or in the wake of Jaws's effect of that kind of blockbuster that hopefully can be repeated over and over, and putting a lot of resources into maybe a fewer into fewer movies that have like a huge marketing push, that have the big summer release. That I think we're obviously very much into that pattern in today's films of uh, of like the Marvels, the big franchises type of things. But it all kind of any summer blockbuster I think comes back to Jaws.